I self-imposed a series of limitations on my own photography, square format and the lack of colors being the most obvious ones. But I have more boundaries, more artificial boundaries, like the subject matter, the locations that I visit, the time of day, the weather conditions, the time of year, and many more. I create and embrace these limitations because even though it might seem counterintuitive at first, there is a lot of freedom in constraints. In this video I hope to show you why I think that way. I'm gonna be doing it on one of my daily walks, and I'm gonna be setting yet another limitation, another boundary for myself today, because I'm gonna be doing all my photography with an 85mm lens. Probably not the best choice for these landscapes and these subjects around here, but I think it makes sense for the topic of the video. It is unseasonably warm. It's just, not only we haven't had any snow in the whole winter, but it's not foggy anymore in the mornings. It doesn't get cold enough. It's not raining either. It's cloudy today, and this was the worst weather we've had in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Not ideal for a photographer like me who relies on the weather heavily to create the images that I like, the mood that I seek. So because we have such a gray and flat day, I was hoping that the fast aperture of this lens, this is a 1.4 lens, that could help me creating some contrast and isolating some subjects. Even though it's a cloudy day and not as bright as a sunny and clear day would be, I still need to use an ND filter if I want to shoot this lens at 1.4 at the widest aperture at this time in the middle of the day. So I'm using a 3-stop ND filter, and I find that to be mostly enough for these conditions. I'm shooting at 1/2500th of a second, 1/4000th of a second, stuff like that, but still able to shoot at the widest aperture. But that's not the only reason why I'm using this lens today. It's not the only reason why I use prime lenses. As you know, I usually shoot with a super zoom lens that I brought today just to show it to you. I'm not using it, but this lens is at the Tamron 28 to 200mm, and this is very versatile, and I find it very useful, especially when I'm traveling to new locations that I'm not going to be visiting again or very often, or when the conditions are so good or so special that I want to take advantage of them, and I want to be able to capture whatever I see without wasting time switching lenses and stuff like that. But on regular days like today, when the conditions are not that special, and in locations that I know very well, locations that I have access to very often, sometimes, more than sometimes, very often I like to bring a prime lens, because that limits what I can capture. It narrows down my options. On one hand, that pushes me to see the landscape through the eyes of the 85mm lens instead of having all the options in the world with my super zoom. That way, I'm more likely to find shots, to find images that I had missed before, because I was focusing on the more obvious shots and pictures. On the other hand, and more importantly, because it applies not only to your lens of choice, it narrows down my options when I'm out in the field taking photos. You know what they say about these lenses, that the way to zoom is with your feet. But that's a lie. You see, the field of view of a 35mm lens, for example, and an 85mm lens is going to be completely different. It's not just a matter of how far or how close you are from the subject. I have a video here where I talk about how different focal lengths affect the way your image will look like, the way the subject and other elements in the frame will look like. So my point is that when you commit to a focal length, to a prime lens, like I'm doing today, you're committing not only to how far or how close you have to be from the subject to, I don't know, fill the frame with it, but you're also committing to the way everything else looks in the frame. The way I'd approach this place, this scene right here, if I were using my super zoom lens, at least initially, would be to try to fit the whole structure in the frame using probably the widest focal length. In that case, it would be the 28mm, but I don't have that option right now because I'm using the 85, so I'm forced to look for different images for different pictures. It's all about focusing on how to isolate the interesting details, the interesting parts of this water facility. Of course, I'm not saying that I wouldn't have made those very same images if I were using the zoom lens, because it's a 28-200, so I can shoot at 85 the same way that I'm shooting with this one, but it would be less likely, like a second, third, or even fourth thought. But the question still remains, how can all of these limitations be freeing? How can you achieve freedom through so many constraints? Well, the answer is that by narrowing down our options, by limiting our tools, by setting up artificial boundaries, because they are artificial, we are actually able to focus more on what's left. Because otherwise the situation could become very overwhelming if we were out to photograph anything and everything and in any way that our cameras allow us. This is another example. Because I'm using a long lens, I wasn't able to fit the whole power line in the frame, so I decided to go for a more abstract image. Well, I was forced to do it that way because I have this lens and not the other one. So yet another example of an image that I might have not made if I weren't using this lens. But using a prime lens is not by any means my favorite way to set boundaries for my own photography. That be, as I said earlier, restricting myself to mostly square format and only black and white imagery. Now, some might think that this approach is too restrictive, and that might be the case for them, and even for most people, but it is not for me personally. Of course, it is restrictive, but it's not too much. It is within those restrictions that I thrive. And that's because those are the images that I like to create. Those are the images that inspire me to get outside and take photos. I don't take pictures of people, I don't take pictures of colorful sunrises and sunsets, I don't take pictures of cars or you name it. It's not because I think that what I do is better, it's because I am better at doing what I do. I also find this approach to be very helpful when it comes to consistency. I think that consistency is a little bit underrated. Of course, there's gotta be room for experimentation. And again, I have another video about that. But creating a consistent body of work over time is very important in my opinion. I'm sure this all sounds familiar because we all have found ourselves in situations where we had too many options, so many that we had a hard time choosing what to do. It happens very often to me when I'm trying to decide where to go to take photos. Sometimes I'm just paralyzed staring at Google Maps because I have many options and I don't really know which one will be the best one. The same happens when I have too much camera gear. I don't know which lenses to bring, which cameras to bring. Of course, this applies not only to photography, but life in general. Options are good, but too many options are not that good. And that's the point I wanted to make in this video, that there is freedom in constraints as long as we choose them wisely. So I would like to know whether you impose restrictions on your photography or not, and if you do, what are those constraints? What are your favorite ways of setting boundaries? I might not get back to all of you, but I read all the comments. I really appreciate all of them, so please feel free to share your thoughts down below. I hope the topic was interesting. Please don't forget to give me a thumbs up and to subscribe if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.